You're listening to Two Mics and a Guest, a podcast of people's stories and the career pathway that led them to where they are. And now your hosts, Michael Holliday and Mike Young.
Welcome, everybody, to Two Mics and a Guest. I am Michael Holliday. Joined with me, as always, is...
Mike Young. Good to be here.
Mike. This is we're at 8 now? Episode 8?
I think so.
I can't believe we made it this far. How have we not been pulled? If this was on radio, we would definitely be pulled by now. But
the door is locked. So
yeah, the door is locked. On-air sign is on. Anyways, episode 8, we have a great guest. Can we introduce who we got today?
Yes, Rachel Ferrell with the Keller Williams Agency. She's a realtor. I actually met her on our grand opening for Tullahoma Virtual Academy. Yep. She was here with the chamber and a bunch of folks there, and we've talked a couple other times. And very excited for you to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. This is a fun setup. I mean, this is really impressive.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been fun. I mean, it's evolving. We're flying the plane while we're building it. It's a good thing.
Right.
You know?
I'm getting off.
It's too late. Door's locked. Yeah. No, it's all good. It's been great. And the nature of our podcast, obviously, we've talked to you about this, is your pathway to where you are now. And right now you're a realtor. Absolutely. With Keller Williams. Tell us about what's a day of Keller Williams, right?
Yes, Keller Williams.
I said Keeler. Who's Keeler?
You're from Louisiana. We'll give you a pass on pronunciations.
No, we don't have any Keelers in Louisiana.
Okay.
Sorry, Keller.
Your Cajun's slipping out.
It will. What's a day in the life of a realtor look like?
Yeah, so this is part of the reason why I became a realtor, is because a day in the life looks different every day. It just kind of depends on what's going on. There's definitely some things that I try and time block to do every single day, making sure I'm reaching out to whoever it is that I'm working with, making sure that they know what's going on with their transactions, email, news blasts, making sure my marketing is on point. As a individual that is, I work for Keller Williams, but I am also independently. I'm independent,
okay.
And so I have to make my own schedule. I have to run my own business. So from marketing to communications to just the transactional work, administration, I do all of those things for myself. So each day looks a little different.
No, frankly, that's exciting because it's. We've had a couple of people come in and say, well, every day's different. And for a student that's sitting out there going, well, what does that mean? You've just gone through several levels of skills there with the personal marketing, getting your business, the different transactions. I guess, buying a house is not like going up to the checkout stand and getting a receipt.
Nope. Absolutely not. There are some times where I work with clients I had one where we walked into one house and they said, this is it. This is the one. We put the offer in. They had a great offer. We got it. We were done. Fantastic. Right. I drove to one house. Wow. There's one couple that I showed over 50 houses.
Wow.
Before 50? We found, yes. And we had put offers in on multiples of those houses and had lost those just given the market. Right. But it just, you never know what you're going to get.
Oof. Patience is obviously a virtue in your job. But
I prayed for patience, and I got my firstborn son. And so that's my lesson with him. And then I prayed for thick skin, and God told me, you're going to be in real estate. So.
There we go.
There you go.
Sounds perfect.
Well, and you got to watch what you pray for. Is what you're saying. That's the lesson we're going to get in this kind of thing.
Yeah. I really like my son. Now, real estate, I'm just kidding. Exactly. I love it.
Well, no, and there's a lot that goes into a real estate transaction. And Absolutely. You've got to get all the pieces together. We've got lawyers. We've got the seller. We've got the bankers and the money and everything else.
Yeah.
And I guess the realtor is sort of helping orchestrate a lot of this stuff, right?
Definitely. We're an event planner in a sense.
That's interesting, yeah.
And whenever we talk about my origin stories, that's something that I had done in the past, but I didn't really enjoy working with brides. What I love.
Talk about patience. Talk about patience.
Right.
Again, that prayer is not the one you want to pray.
No. Again, I like my son better than the brides. But anyway, it's like event planning. I have to know the people. I have to network myself so that I know who the best home inspectors are. If I need an appraiser for any reason outside of the bank, I need to know that person. I need to know who can fix the crawl spaces and who can fix the HVACs and who can do all of those different pieces, so that whenever my client says, "Hey, Rachel, our HVAC, it's not looking good. What do I do?" And I say, "You call Troy.
And you want a good person at
I
that.
know a guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's something that I'm on a team, and one of our little slogans is we want to be the I know a guy guy.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. I like that.
Everyone needs that person.
Absolutely.
That knows the person.
Definitely.
No, I mean, I think that's cool. And I also think it's interesting how you just threw out a whole bunch of different career options that are connected with this kind of with this field, right? I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do with it.
And they are all in high demand. I mean, whenever I call I have 2 home inspectors that I really lean on. And when I call them, they're booked. They're booked out, especially with the way the market is today. But same with appraisers. It's really hard to get an appraiser to come out quickly because there's so much demand.
I know someone who's trying to build a house right now, and they called numerous different people for a quote for framing the house. And so many of these construction people are booked out, and you can only frame so many houses a year because it takes 2 months to frame a house maybe.
Right.
And so they're like, we're just trying to get back quotes on just framing our house.
Yeah. Well, and they honestly, at this point, quoting's hard. With the way that material costs are,
it's
things
volatile
are
market,
floating out in the ocean, and we don't know when they're going to come come
Yeah.
to shore.
Yeah. That's a good point.
We joke almost now, just blame COVID for everything, but it's messed up a lot of stuff for supply lines and everything else. So where are you from? Did you grow up here? You didn't grow up in Tullahoma, I
did
believe.
not grow up in Tullahoma. I grew up in Murfreesboro.
Okay.
So I was born at the hospital that doesn't exist anymore. And I grew up on the Cason Lane side of town, graduated from Siegel High School. Excuse me. In high school, I did musical theater, and I was on the color guard. And so I did not spend a lot of time in
Go Stars, right?
Yes.
Go Stars.
That was us. We were the Stars.
One of the coaches on our staff now at Tullahoma High School coached at Siegel there for a little while, so I've heard a little bit of that.
It's the lamest mascot you could possibly have. It was great for jewelry, but that was about it.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Nobody's intimidated by a star.
My kids played soccer, and they hated playing Siegel because y'all were always good. I mean,
Oh, yeah. Y'all got
so
some
was
athletes.
our band. Right. Our band was number 1.
Now, our band will hang.
Easy now.
Everywhere we went.
Can't be saying that with Tullahoma band.
If
so
my
close.
kid joins band, maybe I will. But I don't know. It's my alma mater.
Yeah. Blood runs deep.
It does.
There. So, Murfreesboro,
Absolutely.
Siegel.
So whenever I graduated from high school, I went to MTSU. Originally, this is a winding story. Originally, I started off in college as a special education major.
Oh, wow.
I took a course with just a phenomenal teacher, and we had an assignment to give a presentation. And the class average was it was out of 25 points. The class average was like an 11. And I had 24 out of 25. And she said, you need to be in the communications department. She was like, I think that you would be a great special education teacher, but what I see in you is this different piece. And so I took that as a sign, went and changed my major, organizational communication, learned how to train. And that was my focus, was training adults. So rather than teaching children, I was teaching adults. And it was a blast. Essentially, it was a business major without the finance.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't do a lot of the accounting pieces that are required of business majors, but I did a lot of the communication pieces. And it can be easily easily confused with communications.
Right.
I was not broadcasting. Nope. This is not my forte.
You're doing good, though.
Talking.
Yeah.
Talking is
You're
my
a good
forte.
talker on this.
Which is perfect for podcasting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, it is interesting, and we are, whatever number podcast this is, number 8, I believe, 8 for 8, of where a teacher or someone had influenced as they move forward in a career. And so this teacher saw that, and you jumped on it. I mean, were you having questions about the education major, and so she helped in that way, or did she push you over the edge?
I think it was I think I was pushed over the edge. So I love and appreciate teachers, and I believe that that's a career path that is a wonderful one to take. For me, I felt like being in that particular field, pigeonholed me.
Right.
And I like variety. And so whenever I joined the new major, whenever I became a organizational communication major, I realized this can help me in so many different areas. So whenever I graduated college, I became an event planner.
Yeah.
I was in catering. I helped with wedding planning. It was a company called Main Event in Nashville. And so I worked downtown, helped with catering for a different event venue in Franklin, worked with brides. You know, it was the same thing. What I loved about it and what I love about real estate is that every transaction, every event was different, but the bones were the same. And so, you know, there was a level of organization, you know, what do you want this? Where do you want this to be? How do you want to do this piece? And then I did all of the same things in the background.
Right.
And then once it was done, it was done. I got to do a new one. Something new came up. So I was in event planning for about 2 years, and my husband went to school, and we realized I couldn't work 7 days a week. I mean, that was what you have to do whenever you're in event planning. And so I started working at Lipscomb Academy as the advancement administrative assistant. So we were in fundraising.
Right.
And I did events for them too.
Go Mustangs, right?
Yeah, Mustang. Look at you. You are the mascot king.
Well,
He is there. He's got it.
When I coach football, you tend to know a lot of the schools in the area. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, going to event planning, I mean, from event planning to fundraising, it's still event planning, right? I mean, you're still meeting folks and doing that.
Yeah.
And that's the lifeline of those.
The event may be different, but the planning and the preparation is probably very similar.
All of the prep work is the same, yes. And again, that's sort of that consistency that I think keeps me sane, but it still gives me the variety that also keeps me sane. It's a good balance.
Of course.
Right.
But that was also fun, being in fundraising. I didn't feel like that was going to be where I landed. I got pregnant with my firstborn, and we decided that I needed to stay home with him. And I loved that choice. That was a great choice. Yeah. We did that until we had 2 kids, and my youngest was a year and a half when I thought, like, I can't. Right. I can't stay home for 18 years.
Right.
I've got to do something. I need to get out of the house. Do y'all Enneagram?
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
do the Enneagram? Okay,
6.
I'm a 3-2.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so
I never remember a number, and my wife would know it.
There's
And that
only
probably
9.
tells you my number.
Well, I only know
tells you my number.
I only know my number because our previous guest of ours, Miranda Olive, we got into this conversation one night talking about it. And she's like, "Oh, you got to take this test," and I was like, I don't know, like I thought it was horoscope-ish, but then it turns out it's way more legitimate.
No,
I feel
it's
like.
legit.
yes.
But I took it and I was just reading all the things and I was like, oh my goodness.
Are you a 6'5" to be a Ron Swanson?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't remember the wing, but or the what it's called. I forget what it's called.
No, you did. That was right.
But yeah, but yeah, I knew it was a 6. But
just trust yourself, man. You had the wing down. You're sounding really authoritative.
Well, not being confident is part of that 6.
Yeah,
so I'm just like,
prime example.
Exactly.
We're here.
There we go.
But yeah, so I stayed at home for a little while, decided I needed to go back to work. You know, a part of the story that I didn't say that I wish I would have at this point, whenever I graduated, I actually interviewed to be a real estate agent in multiple brokerages in Murfreesboro. But the recession had just happened. They were having a hard time recovering. The different organizations that were that I would have had to gone to school through, they were just not there just wasn't a lot of availability. And so I punted, and I'm glad I did, because I feel like whenever I got into it was the right time to get into it. I needed to have my kids. Like, we needed to get past that point to be able to do that for me personally. But.
No, that's cool. I mean, and it's interesting. My daughter just had my first grandbaby, by the way. So
nice, congratulations.
And working and making those decisions is something that we all have to work through on how you want to do it. And there's no right decision. I mean, there's no wrong decision, put it that way, necessarily. It's what works for your family and that kind of thing. So.
Yes, there's multiple ways to get to 4. 2
That's
plus
exactly
2,
right.
1 plus 1 plus 1.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So, we kind of jumped over it already, but you said it was business. I want to go back to the organizational communication a little bit.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because I want students, as they're starting to think about college, a lot of times they don't even know some of these majors exist and what that means. Talk about that, and then how it's translated into what you're doing now too.
Okay, so I believe organizational communication is a multi-purpose degree.
Sounds like it.
It is more than just, there are people who graduate with general studies, and I think that is great. You graduated. I'm really proud of you for going through and taking the classes. Organizational communication to me is a little bit of a step above that in allowing you to learn what it's like to work in any sort of work environment. It's negotiating skills, it's networking skills, it's learning how to handle conflict. You know,
Team projects,
absolutely,
all that, yeah.
conflict management classes. It's just generally, you know, it kind of reminds me of HR a little bit, where you're learning how to get along in a work environment, and it really does copy paste into any industry that I've worked in.
I really appreciate you pointing that out and talking about that. It's something that we've talked about on the podcast before. We talk about here. I'm a career and graduation coach here.
Yeah.
We want a word that one of the programs we use uses is agilities, and we normally think about that in athletics of being able to be agile. But talking about it in a career standpoint and in a training standpoint, learning standpoint, it helps you translate into different fields, because most people aren't going to stay for 30 years in the same career anymore, right?
And you shouldn't feel like you have to.
Right.
Yeah, that's important.
And it gives you the confidence to be able to move around a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that's that kind of degree.
Absolutely, it is. You know, I read a book before. I can't remember whenever I first read it. It's Who Moved the Cheese?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever read that book?
Heard of it.
So good. It is so good. And that to me is, I think, just, it's important to have the flexibility, to have that agility. I don't know if I'm using it in the correct
No, I think it is.
sense. But to be able to say, you know, my time in the wedding planning industry is running out, and I can either be miserable and spend the next 3 years deciding whether or not I want to make the move, or I can say the cheese has run out, it's been good, end the relationship well, move on to the next piece, and chase the cheese somewhere else.
And it wasn't invaluable. You've got networked.
Absolutely.
The networks you have there and everything else translates too.
Definitely.
Right?
And the best way, I think, to move on is without burning the bridges.
Absolutely. Right.
So I love real estate. I think honestly, this as a landing point, there's so many things, like you said, that I can do moving forward, that even if I'm not in the sales position that I am now, there's a lot of growth opportunity.
And frankly, even the market right now is crazy.
It is.
I mean, it's just nuts. But it's always going to be here.
Yeah,
We're always going to be doing that.
Everyone needs shelter. Everyone needs a place.
it is. Absolutely.
All right. So, Realtor, you've been doing this for how long now?
2 years.
2 years. How has that field changed? You've only been in it for 2 years. You did interview. Obviously, we talked about the markets change things. How is the field of real estate changing these days?
Oh man, that is like the $1 million question. Everybody asks. You know, there's so much going on in the economy, and you have to look at the real estate market a little bit separate than like the stock market. When you have a conversation with somebody about stocks, they're like, everything is going to tank, it's going to be the worst. And real estate and the stock market are not necessarily in alignment with one another. I mean, a prime example would be interest rates right now. Our interest rates are really low. They're artificially low because everything else kind of stinks.
Exactly.
So they're making up for it with
right.
these artificially low interest rates, giving buyers an excellent opportunity to be able to buy homes that they wouldn't have before. And so, you know, back whenever the pandemic began, I actually got my license the week before they shut down testing centers. Oh, wow. And so it was a little bit of a moment where I thought, what have I done?
Yeah.
I've just picked a career. Everything's it's gonna be awful. But what people realized, and it feels so cliche to say this, but what people realized is that they needed their homes to be everything for them. They needed it to be school. They needed it to be an office. They needed it to be affordable. And in a lot of cases, people started moving out of necessity. You know, a spouse lost a job, the other one was on salary. You know, we have to make a change in order to be able to even afford to live here.
Right.
And so once that started happening, I think just being an educator has been my main priority from that moment on, to say, you know, the market is okay. We're doing well. Things typically move from like the coasts into us. And so it feels like we're moving up really fast. It feels like things should probably fall apart. But the reality is the real estate market is very stable right now. And so I think over the past 2 years, the thing that has changed the most in our industry is that we're now not just in a position of let's get you from point A to point B and make it transactional. It's let's get you from point A to point B, and we need to educate you along the way so that you don't feel uncomfortable once you get to point B. Have I made a mistake?
For sure.
No, I think that's extremely important right now. I've talked to young married couples, young people. They're paying these extremely high rent, for instance, because they think I cannot possibly buy a house. It's not even in their mindset to think about it. And yet, with a little bit of education, you can recognize that there's ways to do this.
Yeah.
There's a pathway to get a house.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, and there's so many things that go into it. It's not just your income, it's your credit score, it's what the rates currently are. You know, at a 2.7, you're probably going to qualify for something that you will qualify for something that you wouldn't at a 4.5.
Oh, right.
And so right now, rates are making it so affordable for people who would not have previously qualified that they're paying $1,500 a month for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, rental.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the message that we try to say is, you could be paying much less than that. Own your home and be
Building
growing
equity,
that
all
equity.
the thing, right.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's what it's scary for some folks to think about a 30 years or whatever the loan is. But also, I think some people get messed up in it with getting into something that they haven't really understood what they're getting into.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal. You talked about credit. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up because I've had someone that was recently trying to get in an apartment. And all of a sudden, there was a big roadblock for them because their credit wasn't there. Even trying to get cable turned on and those kind of things, right? I've talked to you about this before. I would love you to talk some more about it because a lot of students don't think about credit. That's for old people.
Right.
But it's not. It's for all of us, right?
Well, and there's definitely sources out there that will tell you you don't need credit. Credit's not important. But I think to the average person, it really is in order to move forward. So the thing that I would say to somebody who's going into college is, don't go buy a bunch of credit cards. Don't go get a bunch of credit cards. When you're at the checkout and they say, would you like to open a credit card for 10% off? Say no and move on.
Right.
Get one that has really low interest and just pay your gas and pay it off. Pay your gas and pay it off. Just do one thing per month. Pay your gas and pay it off.
Don't put everything on it and forget about stuff. And
well, and ratios are important. This is definitely a conversation that I think should happen with with either a financial advisor or somebody who is in lending, to be able to give you that sort of advice. But your student loan debt, that's a big deal right now. There are people who have a house in student loan debt.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
That can really affect your ability to purchase a home. But your credit does affect so many things. And like you said, even renting, they're going to check your credit. They're going to check to make sure that you have a history of using credit responsibly and paying it off.
Yep.
Talk a little bit. I know that it is part of your field, and I think you speak well to it, and that's why I'm bringing it up in this, because I do think it's something that any of our listeners need to listen to and think about. But you talked about ratio, and I remember a college student I had back in the day. She was so excited she got her first credit card.
Yeah.
And she said, it's got $5,000 limit. And that's exactly, she was all like this.
They see that number and they're like, ooh.
I was like, yeah, and you don't want to reach that number ever. Right. We had that conversation. And sure enough, in a year and a half, it was maxed out.
Absolutely.
And there was a number on a bill that came to her every month that she did not know what she had bought, right? She's paying money for that thing. When we talk about having good credit, it's not necessarily what's the top end on that credit card, right?
Yeah, no, because they will lend you until the cows come home. Right. I mean, that's the way that it is with vehicles. And I think some people think that they can go to a mortgage lender and get as much money as they can possibly want for whatever house that they want, kind of like you can do a car.
Yeah.
Right.
Whenever you go into a car dealership, they're going to look at you and say, that person wants to buy a car, and we're going to give them whatever it takes to get them that low credit, no credit, we're the bank. I mean, I feel like that's the slogan. Very different with housing. And it is important to understand those ratios. So, your max number is not necessarily what's good for you financially. 33%, 30% is
We don't want 2008 happening again.
No, absolutely
we don't want
not.
People just buying way more than they can actually afford.
Right. And there's so many things in place that prevent that. through lending. The lending practices have changed so
Okay,
much.
good.
And really, for me, I make sure that I partner with lenders that don't
Exactly.
do that. So if somebody asks me for, a referral to a lender, I know that whenever they talk to them, they're going to be talking about their whole financial picture, not just what's the biggest amount of money I can get out of this person. But those credit card limits, it shows up on your credit report what the maximum amount that you have pulled on that card, and how frequently you pay on the cards. And so that all sort of ties into that picture, right into your score. But I think they typically like to see about 30% usage. So whatever your top dollar is, multiply that by 0.30 and try not to exceed that.
Well, the thing you said earlier about just use it for gas or use it for that one thing that's fairly often, but that
you're already paying for.
Yes.
I really love clothes and eyeshadow and all of the things, I want to get into some new crazy diet where I buy all of the products, all of the, machinery to make it happen. Don't put those on your credit card.
Correct.
Have the cash for that. But don't put anything on your credit card that you can't pay cash for.
And slowly over time, some of these credit card companies, you have these incentives like the frequent flyer miles and the cash back and things like that. So some people can see that and go, oh my gosh, I can get so many frequent flyer miles if I just buy a whole bunch of stuff. Exactly. But if you just use it for that one thing, you're religious about paying it, you can build some perks alongside of that. So
absolutely,
I can see some positive, but you just got to be diligent with it and disciplined. Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, and again, I don't think that's a tangent at all with what you're doing. I love that you're bringing that to the table, frankly, with your clients. Some of your clients are more educated about that than others, I'm sure.
Yeah. They are. And it's incredible to see, well, I only missed it by, 2 or 3 days. Like, well, that hits, that shows. And if you miss it by 2 or 3 days, 3 or 4 months in a row, then there has to be time between the time that you missed it to the time that you buy a house or, get into an apartment. It's a little bit easier with apartments if you have bad credit because you can have a cosigner.
Right.
But mama might not want to cosign on your $250,000 house.
Right. That's exactly right. So what is something that you would tell your younger self?
What would I tell my younger self? Just to relax. I think just to relax. I think reading that Who Moved the Cheese book really helped me do that a little bit because...
Talk about that a little bit, about that book, because I remember that book.
Okay.
But some people may not know what you mean by that when you say Who Moved the Cheese.
Absolutely. So it's a story of these mice inside of a maze, and they have 3 different personalities. And man, it's been a little bit, so I can't really describe.
Just the general.
So they are eating on, a table of cheese. They have this buffet of cheese. And, as they are eating on it, the cheese eventually runs out on the table. Yeah. And you have to make a choice. You have to decide, are we going to go to the store and grab some cheese? Or are we going to go snip? Where's the next place to find some cheese? And there's like a go-getter that, he keeps moving forward. The cheese has run out here. I've recognized it. I'm not going to sit here and starve at this table expecting somebody to bring me some more cheese. Yeah. I'm going to go sniff it out.
Right.
And sometimes I felt like I would just sit for a little while. And I'm kind of a go-getter, so I think my sitting is in shorter spurts.
Well, you said just relax, though. I mean, what...
Yeah, but just to relax and say life changes. It is a roller coaster.
Right.
There are twists, turns, and I don't know, dips. But Dave Ramsey once said that that the only people who get hurt on a roller coaster are the ones who jump off. Right. And you just have to hold on and just keep going and realizing that the end of something is not the end of everything.
Right.
And knowing that life does take turns. Again, special education to organizational communication to possibly in real estate to wedding planning to being in advancement to being a stay-at-home mom to being in real estate. And knowing that each of those steps was not a mistake, I shouldn't go back in time and be like, man, I wish I wasn't a wedding planner. Those are skills that I developed and needed to be able to move forward. And just knowing that the ebb and flow of life is we're just really just kind of chasing the cheese. Yep. And the time is going to pass anyway. What's going to happen? If I'm going to sit at the table and wish that somebody would bring me some cheese, the time is going to pass anyway. What can I do? Yep. What can I do to better
can I be productive?
My time?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, I think it's interesting in the course of your story of where even when you made the decision to do real estate and that was a roadblock, there's that agility thing again, right? Yep. My whole life didn't end because I couldn't get in that field.
Right.
And then you eventually came back to it. It wasn't something you had to completely ditch, but it was something you were able to move past and keep on moving. So that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely hasn't been easy. I don't want it to sound like the past 10 years have been just a breeze. There were definitely moments where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I, adjusting so many times? But I think accepting who I am as a
sometimes we learn more from the negative things in our life than the positives, and we need those sometimes.
Now, let me ask you this, because I think you're bringing a point on with, I hope it's not too personal. When you're in those holes like that, how do you get out of them?
Man, that's a tough question. And
it's not the definitive answer. How did you get out of them? What was helpful for you when you got in those situations?
I think just waking up and dressing for the day and just, putting the face on that said, I'm not fake. I'm not trying to prove that I'm something that I'm not, but just waking up in the morning, I, drink my coffee, I put my clothes on for the day for, who I'm going to be. And then if I can do that, then I can take another step. And just, narrowing things down to just one thing. What can I do today that is going to make my life better or easier moving forward? And that's not always easy for me. I'm not,
It's not easy for any of us.
Yeah.
We get in that
I'm not
place
as
sometimes.
consistent as you see these things, the miracle morning, where it's like, wake up at 5 a.m. and do 8 things and your day's going to be great. I'm like, I need a nap after those 8 things. Just let me wake up at 7, drink my coffee, and put my clothes on.
Right.
And if I can do that one thing, then I can do just about anything else.
That's good.
I think that's big, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and a lot of times it's something simple that we can keep us moving forward.
I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to do all of the things in order to feel better. And sometimes it's just a personal choice to say, I'm going to feel better today.
Yeah.
Well, and you hit on something too, and I know we're going to be wrapping up here pretty quick, but a lot of times we make that decision to move forward. It's something out there. It sounds like you made it. It was something in here. I'm going to get up and do this for me and do this. It's not just the goal may not be pretty fuzzy. I'm sure when the one thing ended, when the real estate thing didn't work out, that goal out there in front of you was kind of fuzzy.
Right,
at that
it was.
point, right? But making that internal motivation was a big deal, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was. Well, and again, going back to that book, that's sort of the premise of it, is the turns in the maze and not psyching yourself out as you're walking through it. Like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to, but I can smell it. Like, I'm almost there. I feel like I'm almost there. And I definitely feel like, to an extent, I have arrived at this table of cheese.
Oh, beautiful. Poetic there at the end.
Oh, gosh.
Anything we didn't ask you about that we should have?
I don't know. I think just in terms of real estate, if people are interested in getting into it, it is a lot of fun.
Tell that process, too, real quick. I mean, you didn't major in real estate.
No, I didn't. So it's a course. I took it online through the CE shop. They have some if you're better in person, but as a stay-at-home mom, I needed to be able to do it during nap time. And so, I went through those courses. You have to go through your local group. So I'm through Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors. Then I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors. You do have yearly dues. It is a business, where you have to make money so that you can pay the people, that you can keep making money. But you don't have to have a college degree in order to do it. Mine definitely has helped me in this pursuit, but I did not have to have it in order to make that happen. And there are yearly CE, continuing education requirements. But there's so much variety in it. You can be at a brokerage where they're completely hands off and you do everything on your own. I'm with a brokerage that is not that way, that provides a lot of training. If you want hand holding, then they'll do it. If not, that's okay too. And you really get to pick what you want. And what's beautiful to me is that you have the opportunity to make a lot of money. If you want to make, if that's your goal, is to make a lot of money, then you can work 80 hours a week if you want to. My goal is to spend time with my children, make enough money for us to be able to go to Disney and to do the fun things, pay off the car, do the whatever it is that we want to do. And I get to set my hours and my goals. So somebody can look at me and say, Rachel, how do you feel like you're doing in real estate this year? And if I am meeting my personal goal, whether that's $30,000 or $130,000, I feel successful because I'm doing what I am choosing to do.
You have an important goal, and it's not just money. So that's important.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah,
We'll
be here
No,
forever.
that's fantastic. I think that's great because a lot of times what is your goal? Like, we don't think about what our goal might be,
Right.
and we don't think about what our definition of success might be.
Right.
We let somebody else dictate that to us.
No.
And that's
it's
a trap,
so
man.
easy
Yep.
to let other people dictate what that is.
Absolutely.
You're just spinning your wheels. No. I have a goal, and I did it last year. I was really proud of myself at the end of the year, and it might not be considered a, mega all-star top producer. I'm not like Ryan Serhant
Oh yeah.
selling
Right.
New York,
We've all
but
seen
that
his
wasn't your goal.
that was not my goal.
Yeah.
My goal, I had specific goals within my house. I want my children to be able to have a life with their mom and, to be able to have things.
Yeah.
And
Time's more important than money in a lot of cases.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to help people. I mean, that's really, in the end, I really want to help people. And this year I had a goal. It looks like I'm gonna meet my goal this year, and I feel really good about that.
Great. That's awesome.
I love that I want to help people too.
Yeah,
It's a great
that's
feeling
really
when they
important.
sign that and close that
So
house.
good
isn't
to
it?
be done and let them move on with their life. I've got one that we're waiting to get to Florida. They're retiring into Florida, and once they're there, I think that's going to be such a great feeling to be able to say I helped them get to their peace.
You see happy people that have sold my house, and happy people said, I bought a house. It's the same transaction.
Oh,
right?
it's so big.
It's all good.
That's
So
awesome.
big.
Anything else?
I mean, I'm good if you're good. I mean, that's
Well, I read something the other day
Okay.
about somebody who owned a haunted house.
Oh,
Yes, so he owns a haunted house, and
'Tis the season.
It is the season,
Yeah.
right? I thought it was really interesting, and he had stopped making his mortgage payments, and he was defaulting on his loan. And do you know what happened to his house?
what happened?
It got repossessed.
Oh my god.
That's
Oh my God.
That's better than his. That's better than his dad
Oh
joke
no,
yesterday.
that deserves another rim shot.
There you go. There you go.
'Tis the season.
That's
That is
all I've got.
fantastic.
But also, that's
That is great. We really, really appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we may get you to come back and talk about some of these other things too,
For
because I think it's
sure.
something our students need to.
It was a blast. I loved being here. Y'all are fun.
Awesome. Thanks. That has been this episode of Two Mics and a Guest. We hope you enjoy. Be ready for episode 9 coming, but this was episode 8, and we'll see you next time.